Hello and welcome to Nosotros, the podcast about San Antonio politics, history, cultura, y más. I'm your host, Elaine Ayala, Metro columnist for the San Antonio Express News. My guest today is the one and only Shelly Lares. She's a San Antonio vocalist, musician, producer, and now a CEO of her own record label, Shell Shock 3 Records, which is on the city's near south side, right across the street from a McDonald's. So it's very conveniently located. She's been in the music industry, if you can believe it, by looking at her, for 42 years. And she was first known as Little Miss Dynamite. Bienvenida, Shelly.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's my honor to be here with you, my longtime friend and someone I highly respect. So thank you for having me.
It's so wonderful to see you here in this beautiful studio.
I love it.
There's so much to talk about, but I guess I'll start with the question that so many interviewers have of you, because you were friends with Selena Quintanilla Perez.
Yes. We got introduced to each other at age 10 because we were the youngest two female artists in the industry at this time. Mind you, I think we were the two of 7 women altogether in Tejano in 1982. So we met 1982. We hit it off immediately. I mean, we're two 10-year-old little girls, you know. She was only 7 months older than me, so we were very close in age. We had a lot in common, especially, you know, being very family oriented and loving music. The only difference between the two of us was I was still very active in school and she was pretty much already homeschooling and on the road. But yeah, we were friends for 23 years, you know, and it was a great friendship. Great friendship.
Tell us a story about that period.
Oh man, there's a lot of stories. The funny thing is we never.
By the way, I have to say that I love your voice, not just how you sing, and I'm going to ask you to sing, but in the little huskiness.
I think that's just the years of being on the road and singing every weekend. But yeah, no, we never discussed music. That's the one thing that we never talked about.
Wow.
We never talked about music. We always talked about, we shopped. We talked about just girl things, typical teenage girls once we turned teenagers. We love to go shopping. We love hanging out, going to the movies, going to eat at Luby's. Because I would take my parents.
Luby's.
My parents would allow me every spring break to go spend the week with her in Corpus. So my spring breaks I'd spend there. And we would go to the mall at sunset and everybody knew her already and us. And so, yeah, we'd go hang out at the mall, go to the movies and just, I was there with her the very first time that she cooked barbecue chicken. She'd never barbecued before. So we had a conversation one day because our parents were going to be there together at her house. And we're like, she's like, I want to barbecue some chicken. I was like, okay, so we go to Sam's and Walmart. We buy all this Sam's. I think it was Sam's. We go buy all this chicken and she burned it. She burned it and she didn't want me to say anything. So we went and we took it and we threw it over the fence and started over. So I never told anybody she burned the first round.
Until now.
But no, fans are constantly asking me stories. They always want me to share things. I still have a lot of pictures and videos of us as young children, just hanging out. That a lot of those I pretty much kind of keep to myself. I feel like, you know, those are my memories and those are just something of our friendship that I'd like to keep private. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
How beautiful.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me, your very first singing performance.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And how that propelled your career, really. The very first time, I think, were you at a quinceañera?
I was. I want to say it was a quinceañera. I can never remember if it was or a wedding. It was one of the two.
It was a pachanga,
and it was
for sure.
Yeah, and it was on the south side. It was at the Royal Palace off Military.
Oh, beautiful.
And how that all came to be, that's really when I was really like hardcore introduced to Tejano music. I grew up with from a very musical household. My mom and dad were both musically inclined. My sisters and my brother musically inclined. Both sides of my family, mom's side, dad's side. So I grew up listening to many different types of music. My siblings liked everything too. My parents too. And I only knew Tejano as for quinceañeras and weddings and family functions. But my sister got married in 1982 and they hired a Tejano band named Hot Tamales. The reason they hired that band is because prior to my sister's wedding, David Mares was the vocalist of Hot Tamales. And my brother-in-law was a big Tejano fan. My soon-to-be brother-in-law. Big Tejano fan. And he loved David Mares. Well, David Mares quit the band before my sister's wedding, but my sister asked if, I could sing a song with the band. So my dad called the manager and asked him if I could do a song. Of course, I didn't know anything in Spanish. I just knew a lot of Olivia Newton-John and Linda Ronstadt and Dolly Parton, Pat Benatar and stuff. But they agreed to do an Olivia Newton-John song called Let Me Be There. And so I remember walking into the practice room, which was a garage at the manager's house. Jimmy Jimenez was the manager of Hot Tamales. And I started singing, and I just remember the guys like looking around at each other, looking at my parents. And the manager called my father that night and asked if I could make an appearance before my sister's wedding at that quinceañera.
And you were how old at this
10
point?
years old. I was 10. So I get up there and I start singing, and the crowd came to the front of the stage, and I was just, what's happening? I didn't know what was going on. I was like, this is an incredible experience. And then we finished the song, and the sax player picks me up, and people are cheering, and we do the song again because that's the only one we knew. And
I love it.
Yeah, and they asked my dad after my sister's wedding if I could join the band, and my dad said, "Yeah, we don't have any problems with it. It's just her school comes first, and as long as she plays early in the set, because we played on Wednesday nights too, Wednesday and Thursday nights."
And you were then a student at?
I was at St. Paul's. I was at St. Paul's at this time.
And you ended up graduating?
I was in fourth grade.
You were in fourth grade.
I was in fourth grade.
But you ended up going to
I went
Providence?
from St. Paul, I went to Providence. Yeah. I actually almost went to Ursuline Academy. That's where I really wanted to go. Yes. I had two cousins that graduated from there, and I was accepted into Ursuline Academy. But then, no, they were still open for a while. What happened was we did our Catholic school tours where we would go visit the Catholic high schools. And, went to Ursuline. I knew I wanted to go there, but we visited Providence. And I just fell in love with Providence. I felt like that was more of a fit for me. I felt like I belonged. I don't know. I felt like I got along with the girls. Like the girls were more like me, middle class. And, so I remember coming home from school and telling my mom I changed my mind. I want to go to Providence. She's like, but you're already accepted in Ursuline to Ursuline Academy. I was like, I want to go to Providence. So I transferred my papers and went to Providence instead, which I loved.
And that song by Olivia Newton-John propelled your career.
It did. Let Me Be There. And then probably, it was very quick. It seemed not even a year later, the manager decided he wanted to go and record a record. So we did Break It To Me Gently, which I think originally Brenda Lee did that song. And then Juice Newton did the song, which is the version I knew. Was the Juice Newton version, but my mom made it bilingual, so it was in Spanish and English.
Also would
my mom was my lyricist, but this is the first time mom, translated. So she translated the words, and we went into Manny Guerra's studio. By this time, I was probably about 10 and a half, fixing to be 11, and I recorded Break It To Me Gently, the A side of the 45. I made the A side.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I recorded it in one take. And I'll never forget because I sat there, my parents and I sat there in the studio for hours waiting for the musicians to record their parts. And then it was me, which is vocals are usually last. So I went in there and I cut it in one take. And Manny was like, this is what you guys need to do. Y'all need to be like her and, cut it in one take. I think I just went back and re-recorded the very last ooh at the very end. But yeah, that was an experience I'll never forget because I was very intrigued by the recording process at such a young age.
You recently decided to take a different Avenue.
Yeah, huge, big time.
You got off the road, which I'm sure was really hard, and you established Shell Shock Records, Shell Shock 3 Records. And then you also had another segue into...
Oh, there's a lot of segues that have taken place.
So talk about that.
We all think that we have it all planned out, but I know all too well that God is really the one that is driving this journey, this bus of my life, wholeheartedly. So I actually started Shell Shock in 2012 for myself, because I was tired of dealing with record labels at this point, being with independent, major label, independent. I wanted to own my own music. I wanted to know where my music was, where my music was not. So I started Shell Shock back then with far down hopes and dreams of signing artists to my label, far down the line. But being a consistent working artist for 40 years, consistently, since age 10, touring all over the United States, Mexico, Guam, Japan, Korea, Alaska, all these different places, and then just, cold turkey, like not being on the road the next weekend. I think what helped me was I got very busy right away. So I didn't really have chance to really miss it or mourn it, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to retire still loving what I do. So I didn't hate the road. I just felt like I wasn't being challenged as a woman, as a person, as a human, as a businesswoman. I just felt, I wanted to do other things later. But I knew as a young child that I wanted to try to do something outside of music. I knew that. So, nursing had been knocking at my heart for a very long time. And I knew I wanted to work in hospice because, being my father's caregiver till his last breath, and just, the transition of, from this life on to the next is something I'm completely comfortable with. It doesn't scare me. It doesn't, anything me. So I just felt like that's really where I wanted to go. In the midst of my very busy time, which was like 2015, 2017, 2018, 2019, I decided to do caregiving twice a week to make sure that it was going to be what I wanted to do. And I got paired up immediately with hospice patients. So I loved it. So I knew, okay, after I retire, I'm going to hit 50, my 40th year. I'm going to start nursing school the following year. That's just it. I was going to do that.
You were convinced.
I was convinced that there was, and everyone was trying to convince me otherwise. Everyone was telling me, no, don't retire. You're still in your prime. Why are you going to retire? Don't leave music, all of these things. And, but I was like adamant, this is what I'm going to do. So, the year before I retired, artists started hearing I was retiring. So they started hitting me up to produce them. I met my artist that is now signed to my label, El Gallo Dez. And I was like, oh man, this guy is too good. I had always wanted a recording studio. It was a dream I had since I was a young girl. My fiance, Mia, she wanted me to have my own studio. She's like, are you sure you can still do the studio and go to school? I was like, I'm not going to have time for anything else but nursing school. I already know. So she finds this place because my dream was to either have an old home, an old church, a lot of property. And she found an old home, which happens to be the oldest home in Palm Heights, a lot of property and gated. And we walk in and she's like, you have to get this. This is the year prior to my last year on the road, or the year prior to my retiring.
So she has gifts as a real estate person because it's a great
she's
spot.
going to be going into real estate actually. She was always looking at real estate. She was always looking around. And so I said, okay, look, let me just pay on this empty building for a year. And if something comes up, I have the building. So I paid it empty for a whole year. I retired. And then February of 2023, which is the year after my retirement, my cousin hits me up and she owned hospice company. And she's like, I want you to handle and spearhead the music ministry, music therapy for my company. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I prayed on it like I do everything else. And I just fell to my knees and I'm like, God, if this is what you want me to do, you're giving me my hospice like I wanted. This is what I wanted, to work in hospice. But I think you're wanting me to do it this way.
And you told me a story when I did a story about that transition in your life of the elderly patients you sat with.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes sang with.
Yes. I did it anyway. Like, it was just what I did when I was a caregiver. But I got paired up with Miss Helen for the last 3 years of my doing caregiving. And she was my confidant. She was my music buddy. She was the one who loved music. And, from a woman who was 92 years old, I got her into listening to like John Mayer and Coldplay, and she loved all kinds of music. But that was our big connection was music. And, she passed, and, I can't remember what year, what year it was, but she passed, and, I stopped doing it. I got too busy on the road. There was no time for that anymore. But I knew, I was still going to be able to work with elderly people in what I'm doing right now. So now I'm with Harmony Hospice Care, which is I'm exclusively with this company. And I love it. I love, just bringing smiles to patients' faces that are having depression, anxiety, that are about to transition, that we don't know what it feels like yet to be in that position. So for me, even bedbound patients that don't move hardly, I'll take little instruments and they're moving their legs and they're moving their hands. And, those are the things that are very important as a big part of, music ministry, music therapy. But I love being in this position. And then the year after I retired, I signed El Gallo Des to my label. And
if you haven't found him on Facebook,
yes, please check him out on all his social.
So I love mariachi. I love Tejano. I love all of that.
Yeah.
But I'm also a big fan of old American classics.
Right.
The Frank Sinatra, the Eddie Gourmet.
Oh, yeah.
Banchos. And he takes all of that on, and he sounds flawless.
He does. I met him, like I said, I saw him the year prior to my retirement. On TikTok. Well, I had kind of put a word out there with a lot of my friends that I was producing a lot of females, but I didn't have any males. I was like, I need to produce guys. There's no guy. Where are all the guys at, And so I was producing another artist of mine, Alicia C. in Sweetwater. And my friend Lexi, who was an influencer on TikTok, she's like, how about this guy? And it was El Gallo Des. And I'm like, wow, this dude is incredible. I go, do you know him? She's like, no, but I can reach out to him. I go, I just want to know where he's from.
I'll tell you that he's very easy on the eye.
He's a very good looking guy. Yes, he is. And very humble and very, very, he's just amazing. Very appreciative of a lot of things. Very grateful. And like 2 hours later, Mia, my fiance, messages me. She wasn't with me this day. She's like, how about this guy? And it was El Gallo Des. So within 2 hours of each other, I'm getting 2 different people sending me the same dude. And I'm like, okay. So Lexi arranges a phone call. Turns out he's in California, in Pico Rivera, like East Los Angeles area. And I ask him, I'm like, do you want to be a recording artist, or do you just want to be a TikTok influencer, which is fine. If you want to do cover songs all day, I'm not mad at you about it, but do you want to be a recording artist? And he says, I do. So that's when I started talking to him more, but I was still, this was still when I didn't know what was going to happen yet. I mean, in my mind at this time, I was going to still be a nurse. But after I made that decision and God made it abundantly clear to me that was the path that he was creating for me in still having my hospice through music ministry. I signed El Gallo Des. I started buying all my equipment for my studio. That's when I started getting it up and running. And then I got the amazing opportunity to be the very first artist in residence at UTSA, which was a first for them and a first for me. And I'm like, I think had I been in school, I wouldn't have had these other blessings that, for me to mentor and teach, which is what I love to do. I've just really realized that among the many gifts that God has given me, helping people is probably the main one. That's what I really love.
The last time I did a story involving you was not about hospice, but about John Leguizamo's visit to San Antonio for his second season of Leguizamo Does America.
Yes.
And you were the interviewee.
Yeah.
And
it was incredible.
I was hanging around the whole day. And
it was awesome.
And a nicer guy and show business I've never met. I mean, he's just the
very
nicest.
humble. Very humble.
I want you to talk about that experience, and then we'll wrap it up. And I'm going to ask you to sing a few bars of something.
Well, I got an email from his production crew, the main one that headed his crew, and I thought it was a joke because sometimes you get these crazy emails, and nowadays you really know you don't know what's legit and what's not legit. Sometimes I knew of the series, so it wasn't like I had never heard of it, but I was like, this can't be. But then as he started to explain a little bit more, I'm like, okay, it sounds like he's really legit. He understands. So, of course, his series consists of him learning about culture, music, food, all kinds of things. And so he chose to touch on Tejano music and on my career. So I was very honored just to be selected of all great, amazing Tejano artists that we have, that he selected me. So when they came, it was before my second semester. So I basically created this class for John because it's one that I do talk about a lot in school, but we didn't have a class that particular day. So I created this class, a master class, kind of trying to help break down the different elements of Tejano and the different styles that we have of Tejano music, because it's not just one thing. And Tejano very much is not only Latin music, it's American music, So
it is American music.
It is American music.
And it was a master class. I sat through the whole thing.
It was fun. It's hard though, in the short amount of time that I had with him.
I thought you had a long time with him. I thought they gave you a lot of time.
I felt like there's so much to learn. And in my sit down one-on-one with him about my 40-year career, how do you talk about 40 years in an hour? It's like there's so many different experiences that have happened. But I tried to stick to what was most important. And I really enjoyed my time with him. He's incredible. He's someone that's super passionate about the Latino culture. And, I really enjoyed my time with him.
And he loves San Antonio.
He does.
He went on, afterwards, I got to interview him, and he went on and on about how much he loves San Antonio. So he'll be back.
Yeah. Oh, he'll be back. He will definitely be back. I know he likes the food, and he does.
He did
like the music. It's so weird, it's so hard to explain Tejano as, in the big world of Latin music. We're just a tiny little piece of Latin music, but we're so many other things. So, getting the chance to explain, but Tejano also, is conjunto. Tejano also is country. Tejano is, mariachi. Tejano is so many things.
It's jazz.
Yeah, it's
all the elements are there. And you broke that down during the class.
I tried to break it down as much as I could for him, but he
and for your students, they were fascinated.
Yeah, and those students of mine, most of the ones that were sitting there, are extremely talented. I've worked with them. I have a lot of them coming to my recording studio. I just am fixing to release 2 of my students' first singles on digital platforms.
That's wonderful for
that
them.
I took on and I produced myself and funded for them, just to give them the experience for them to have to sit down hands on when it's from the recording process to, okay, what's next? Mix and master. Okay. But then, you have to register your music. Then you got to put it up digitally. Okay. This is the process for that. Just all these things that they need to learn. So I've enjoyed it.
So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. We're not quite done
because I'm going to have you sing and send us out. But thanks for listening. You can reach me at eayala@expressnews.net. Thanks for listening and watching. Now you go.
Okay. He encontrado en tu amor la fe perdida. Ahora tiene mi vida una razón. No sé si fue el embrujo de tus ojos que le digo a tus labios robarle el corazón. Yo sé que en los 1000 besos que te he dado en la boca se me fue el corazón. Y Dicen que es pecado querer como te quiero. Quizás tengan razón, pero ¿qué ha de importarme todo lo que me digan si no te de olvidar? Y si es pecado amarte, yo he de seguir pecando porque lo he de ocultar. Te he de seguir amando, te he de seguir besando, aunque me vuelvas loca, hasta que me devuelvas el corazón que en besos yo te dejé en la boca. Wow. I love that one. That's called Mil Besos.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.